Well, Derek, thanks for joining the. You've seen the comedians with cars or comedians in cars. This is, I'm not sure, with golfers in. We got to come up with a name in Zoom. Golfers in Zoom.
Yeah.
So it's U.S. Open week,
Yeah.
and of course the U.S. Open starts tomorrow. So was thinking about 20 years ago this week. You were you were 16 years old. Is that right?
Yeah.
At Bethpage. So I'm going to start with qualifying. One of the greatest things about the U.S. Open is anybody can qualify, and you proved that in 2002. I don't know if you remember this. I was starting at Buffalo Run, and you hit it out of bounds in the first hole of local qualifying. And
I
I
do
thought, well,
remember.
that's it for Derek's trip to the U.S. Open. So tell me what you were thinking, if you can remember back that far, and and if you so just start there.
All right. Yeah, I remember that vividly, actually. Not many people know, but on that tee shot, I was battling some digestive issues. I would have done things differently nowadays, but at the time, I just misplayed it. I was really uncomfortable and hit it anyway. And but I remembered, I thinking to myself, like, all right, that just starting behind the eight ball here. I just got to hit the gas, and ended up birdieing. I remember correctly, I birdied the par fives, I think, to turn it even, and then I shot 4 under on the back nine for 4 under to get in. I think 3 under played off.
So, I mean, do you think today, if what would you have done differently? Not avoiding the TMI here. We don't need to know about your digestive issues, I guess. But in terms of, I guess the question is, was your lack of experience and we'll call it what it is, immaturity, sort of helpful?
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, so I was really good back then. I did a lot of research and I looked at scores that got through, and instead of looking at all the other data, like participants, the number of qualifiers and number of spots and all that stuff, I looked at scores and realized that they're very attainable scores. You just kind of have to do what you're supposed, do what you're supposed to do. And I figured I could have shot those scores. So I don't know if I was ahead of the game or if it was, youthful exuberance or what was it, but I remember being really, really, not only for local qualifying, but sectional qualifying as well. Like looking back at it, being like, man, I could shoot those scores.
So
So,
let's go there. So you make it through at local,
hmm
starting on a bit of a misstep there, but you got through. You
hmm
go to Columbine.
hmm
So again, it's just pick it up there and kind of what you remember about that day.
That's kind of a similar situation as far as big numbers go. I turned at 1 under the front nine. I had 8 pars and a birdie and played pretty solid. And then 11, I don't know if you remember, the 11th hole at Columbine's a real pain in the butt. And I hit it through the fairway, and I was trying to punch out, and I missed it, hit a tree, and went out of bounds. And I made triple. So, I go from 1 under to 2 over, and I remember telling myself, like, I was really trying to play safe and plot my way around, and I kind of relied on making long putts back then. That was kind of like my game plan, was just hit it on the green and then try to pour it in from anywhere. And I remember after that, I had a little pep talk with myself again, and um, ended up making 4 birdies coming in to shoot 2 under. I remember telling myself I need to be a little bit more aggressive. And then I kept it going. I think I shot 4 under on the front nine in the afternoon. And that's kind of when it got real. Like, I remember being like, oh, this is
This could
real.
happen.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And my dad was out there. He was really, really big on keeping it one shot at a time. And I had a extremely close friend caddying for me, John Ward, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. He was the same thing, just let's just hit it and chase it and see what happens. And I remember, like, a storm started coming in, I started getting windy, and like I felt like I was in a movie. And I made some bogeys coming in, but I made a really good par putt, like a 6 footer for par on the last hole, which I figured would either make it or at least get me into a playoff. So
Okay, so you
yeah,
came in, and what were you for the day? How many were you, 4 under?
I think 3. I think I shot 5 under total, 2 under, 3 under.
Okay, so now you're in a playoff,
Mhm.
and it just so happens it's with a tour veteran, Mike
Yeah,
Reed, and one of our best local players, Mike Zaremba. To say they had a little more experience than you is an understatement. So let's go
yeah,
to number one.
yeah,
And
and
I was there starting, and I unfortunately made one of the worst decisions of my life in not going down to the green. I thought, well, I got other stuff to do.
mhm.
So, so tell us what happened.
Yeah. So a backstory to this whole deal. It wasn't really like it came out of nowhere. Like it really had been a plan. I'd talked to my dad about it since because that year before, that's when Ty Tryon made it through Q school that December before. And we were talking about it because I played some tournaments with him and we went back and forth a little bit. And my dad giving me some grief. And so I was giving him some grief back. And he was kind of like, oh, what have you done? And I told him I was going to qualify for the US Open. And I remember researching it and I was like, yeah, I mean, no one my age has ever done that at that point, at least in modern history. And I was like, man, and that's when I started, like I was saying, researching scores. And I was like, I could shoot those. Like, so I, um, it was kind of a plan. And then I made the bet with my dad. I was like, because he was, giving it back, needling me a little bit. And I was like, well, I bet him a car. I was like, if I do it, will you give me a car? And he said, yeah. And so fast forward to the playoff, I knew exactly who Mike Reed was. I've known Mike Zaremba. He was a good friend for a long time and would always help me out when I'd go down to Pueblo on the weekends in high school to get out of the snow. And I knew how good of a player he was, and I was well aware of who Mike Reed was. And um, once again, just told myself, like, there's nothing stopping me from making birdie. I was like, I can make birdie just like they can, or anyone can here. If one of them makes birdie, then we'll go to the next one. I'll try to make birdie there. And um, yeah, it came up short. I think they measured it at 51 feet or something like that in the chip. And I remember looking at it, same thing. I was like, I can make this. And I was like, there's my spot. If I just land it there with this trajectory, it's got a good chance of going in. And when it came out, I knew it was at least going to be close. But when it went in, the first thought I had was I almost felt bad for my dad because I I knew he was gonna get me a car. I was like, oh, yeah. Like, sorry, Dad. But I know I figured he wouldn't, welch on the bet. I knew he was gonna get it for it, but I looked at him and he was really excited, so that made it.
Well, let me just interject here.
Yeah.
You just said a car. It wasn't like a 19, a brand new, or I guess it was 2002, a 2002 Maserati.
Yeah, no, I had a budget in mind and we talked about it beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah. Or after I got through local qualifying, we sorted that out.
Okay.
But
All right. So tell us about the chip itself. This was really, I have got to be still to this day, the greatest shot you ever hit. Wouldn't you say?
Most meaningful probably. Yeah. Back then, like I didn't do much besides practice short game. And so I got really, really good at chipping and putting.
Yeah.
I've never been a great ball striker by any means, but I could always chip and putt really well. And with that came a lot of confidence. And what I didn't realize until I got older is how much I trusted myself. And through the ups and downs that everyone goes through, myself included, playing this game, I realized how important that was. And looking back at it, and that's why I was able to, stand out at certain times as a junior golfer, because I just had so much trust and belief in myself that I gained through, tireless practice.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's certainly a message for all of us,
Yeah.
and I'm sure when we'll come back to that in a minute. So now you're off to one of the things I do remember, you headed immediately from the parking lot to Aspen to play in an AJA event. And I thought that was quite a appropriate ending. Everybody else went home and had a beer, and you're heading off to play in a junior golf tournament.
Yeah, I had to tee off the next morning.
Yeah. Okay, so let's fast forward to Bethpage. I mean, just start at the beginning. I mean, that had to be what a whirlwind. Give us some highlights of your time there.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty surreal. I was never nervous. I remember looking how excited my dad was, and that was the coolest part for me, was seeing how, how much it meant to him and how excited he was, to be inside the ropes and get to experience it through that lens. That was the most fun part for me. I was pretty calm and collected. Still to this day, I remember the guys that came up to me and congratulated me, and and one of the most fun things was, and a big reason why I got involved with CU actually, is on that Monday I played with Steve Jones and Ben Portee, who qualified also. And I still to this day give him a little bit of grief because he beat me in sectionals and beat me in the US Open, beat me in locals and everything, and kind of went under the radar because of my age. And so I still needle him about that a little bit, but I played with both of those guys.
You're talking about Ben.
Yeah, talking about Ben. And I played with Steve Jones, and we had a great time. And but the Wednesday practice round, I played with Darren Clark and Thomas Bjorn. And still to this day, I don't know what they were playing for, but it was a really intense, serious match. And it was a lot of fun. But both of them took time out of their practice round to show me a few things, and even before the first round would come up to me and wish me well. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how much that meant to me, and remembering that. And I was like, man, if I ever get in those guys' shoes again, I would love to make someone feel that comfortable as well. So there's little things like that I remember. But I was never nervous until the group in front of me walked off the first hole, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I wasn't naive to the fact of all the hype. And, realistically, I mean, there was expectations put on me that I knew were pretty unreasonable. As much as I believed in myself, I did know that this was going to be a extreme test. I wasn't strong enough at that age to get it out of the rough at all. And that was before they started doing progressive rough too. So like right off the edge of the fairway there were some lies I could not hit it more than 20 yards. And I remember like hurting my wrists in practice round, just trying. You just grab a wedge and just take a gash. But I remember having trouble like teeing up my ball and feeling like I felt alone. I was like, there's no one to this is all me. Like, there's no one to help me out here. And still to this day, like one of the swing thoughts I have in big moments is I just tell myself, screw it, and let it fly. And I remember that's kind of where I developed it. I was like, there's nothing I can do about it besides just swing the golf club and go find it. And hit a pretty good one, hit the green in regulation, believe it or not, and made par, which was one of the most satisfying pars of my entire life. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know the hole well. First hole at Bethpage. Did you relax at that point, or were you still nervous?
50-50. I went from fearing for my well-being, I was so nervous, to being more of an intense feeling, not as much nerves. But yeah, I do remember. I do remember I hit 3-wood off one. And back then, like a lot of other juniors tried to copy Tiger Woods with everything. And he had an old Titleist PT 3-wood, which was one of the hardest clubs of all time to hit. When you hit it solid, it was great. But when you didn't, it was awful. I remember having to use that and thinking to myself, like, man, I wish I had like a Great Big Bertha right now or something. Yeah, but yeah, I remember that. I think that was the last tournament I played with that thing.
Who are you paired with that first round or the first 2 days?
A guy named Charles Rollerson and another dude named Andy Sanders, and they were Corn Ferry or Nike Tour players at the time that had qualified, and I saw their name for a few years afterwards for a while, but I don't know
Yeah.
what they're up to now.
So just so let's sort of take us through the first 2 days. I mean, you got through that. I'm sure the probably nerves you've never felt like before, and then you kind of settle in. So
Mhm.
what stands out over those 36 holes? And I guess before you answer that, did you think you could make the cut?
I did. I knew I'd have to play spectacular, and I remember telling myself, like, no big numbers, just don't try to be a hero at anything, and just get it on the green. And I was like, if I get going on these, 20, 30 footers, which, I mean, I'm not kidding, I made a lot of those growing up, and it was kind of by design. I trained myself. Would hit those all day long on the putting green, trying to make them, not trying to lag it or anything like that, but trying to hold those. And I was like, if I get that going, I as long as I don't hit any foul balls, I should be able to at
Yeah.
least come close.
So the New York crowds are known for their exuberance.
Yeah.
You were the talk of the tournament for I mean, at least, coming in, this was a
Mhm.
unique story. How were you treated?
They were awesome and really supportive. And I remember, yeah, they made me feel cool. I felt cool. And that was a pretty neat feeling. But um, yeah, I pretty much every hole someone was shouting something, but I don't remember anything negative. Everyone was really, really cool and supportive, and made me feel good. Um, so the only thing I could say, like the only negative I could pull from it, is there was a lot of stuff like, um, you're the next Tiger Woods and stuff like that. I remember being like overwhelmed with these expectations. Like those are pretty big shoes to fill. And, mentally it did actually mess me up for a while with the expectations I put on myself after that. I don't know if you remember, but I started playing really bad golf right afterwards. And, um, for a while, for a couple of years, actually, mainly due to these massive expectations that I put on myself because of that event.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's talk about after. You've had an amazing career in golf. You've won 2 Colorado Opens. You're now the assistant coach at University of Colorado, where your career in collegiate golf ended up taking you.
Mhm.
Um, so now just kind of give us a broad brush of when you look back now, 20 years later, which I don't know if that feels like a short or a long time, and you look at where you are, how do you sort of assess and sort of your goals then and where you are today, and just how you feel about what the game, where you are at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to look back on and kind of reflect and see, the path I've been on. And I'm really happy with where I am. I wake up every day excited, and feel like with being with the program, that I'm a part of something that means something, especially to me. So that part, I'm extremely happy where I'm at right now in life. And as far as playing goes, I just burned out a little bit. I was never the most talented guy at all, and it took a lot of effort and a lot of sacrifice, through personal life and relationships in order to maintain that high level of golf that's needed to survive playing professionally. And I had it for a while out of college, and specifically, I remember in 2011, I had a really good year, and I shot 40 on my back nine. It was the last year at Q School where they had PGA Tour cards at finals you could earn, and I shot 40 on my back nine at second stage to miss by a shot. And I remember it so vividly. It just sucked the life out of me. And one of the reasons, like, it's at a point in everyone's career, it's easy to feel sorry for themselves. But I remember thinking that because they took away two guys withdrew and they took away one of the spots. So I went from 20 in ties to 19 in ties. And I played awful the back nine to finish solo 20th. And I remember I was in the car ride back home or back to the airport, and I never truly bounced back after that. I had to like emotionally detach myself because it hurt so bad, that I could never get that intensity that I needed personally in order to really give myself the chance. So I still played for 8 years after that, and I was kind of on fumes a little bit. I did enough to pay my bills and have some pretty good tournaments, but that fire that's needed, just I can never re-spark it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of a playing career deal with it, but
So that was before you came and won some Colorado Opens after that. Is that right?
one of them, yeah,
Yeah.
one of them. And now the first one, I kind of expected to. Going back to like goal scores, I remember I didn't, I was an All-American that year in college and played really well. And won a tournament a couple weeks before the Colorado Open. I remember I set the tournament record there. That still stands, I believe. And I remember going to the Colorado Open. I was expecting to win. Not by judging who's playing, but just judging by what I was capable of shooting. I was like, with my game right now, I'm capable of really shooting a low score. So I'm just going to focus on that. And I remember that year, that's when John Duma birdied 9 of the last 10 holes in the final group with me. And I had no idea. I was so locked in on what I was doing that I honestly didn't know until the 18th fairway what he had accomplished. So
I do remember, Derek. I
Yeah.
do remember what John said, because I was in the scoring. He said it's like chasing a bullet, because he was well aware of what you were doing because you were keeping pace.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. But yeah, that was pretty good at golf back then. And then the next one though that I won, I wasn't, I knew I had the firepower still, but I mean, I have videos of my golf swing back then, and it was bad. And I just, I think Aaron took a picture of my dad and I sitting right behind the 18th green that year after Saturday, and I just shot 40 to what I thought was fall out of it. And we're talking, and I remember telling him, I was like, I gotta make some changes. Like, it's just not there. And he was kind of giving me a pep talk and some tough love, and went out the next day without that many expectations, but just got hot and shot a real low round on some tough conditions. It was playing pretty hard that day. And yeah, I remember making about a 10-footer for birdie on 18 to, I think Zakai Brown was second that year, and knowing he had to make after I made that birdie, he would have had to make eagle to tie. So yeah, that one was a little different scenario. I wasn't really expecting to win, but back in like the first one, 2009, yeah, I was absolutely expecting to win, and not only win that, but that's when I had that intensity that I talked about, that firepower, which kind of just fizzled.
Yeah. So now you're in a really cool role as
Mhm.
mentor and coach. So if you were coaching yourself
Mhm.
and you're just had it, to come through and start your collegiate career over, what advice would you give yourself? And do you think the story would have played out differently had you had kind of the wisdom that you have today?
Actually, yeah, absolutely. Back then, when I was a freshman in college, I thought there was a magic button or magic information that makes you great. Like a lot of the guys we see who are at that age now, when there isn't there is no magic pill. You could get all the data you want, but the same characteristics of being a really good player, are, they're the same now as they were back then, as they were way before my time, as they were before that. Controlling your golf ball, being able to hit it where you need to, when you need to, and being a really good chipper and putter. I would tell myself, stick to that, and you can't get too good at chipping. You can't get too good at putting. So go do that, and embrace your swing. Is the biggest thing for me. I always tried to make my swing look like certain players, or certain positions and all that. If I could go back and coach myself, it'd tell me that's a load of crap, and impact. That's all that matters, and how consistently you can get through that ball.
Yeah. So what next? Are you still, do you have aspirations, competitive aspirations? Are you playing in the Colorado Open here next month?
Yeah.
Tell us about kind of what you see in your future. And you look at the money that's being thrown around. Is there a part of you that says, maybe I'm not done yet?
Actually, yeah. The last couple of years, no, until recently. It was like this year, I did enjoy not having to play anymore. It was actually really refreshing for me for a couple of years. I parked myself on the couch and didn't feel guilty about it, which was actually really, really nice. But yeah, like the end of last season, it kind of hit me a little bit like, okay, I'm ready to compete again. Maybe not a full-time level, just because that's a lot of travel and a lot of sacrifice you have to make. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I have that in me, but I definitely want to get as good as I can, just for me, just to see how good I can get again. So I've been practicing a lot more, and been playing a lot better right away. And competitively, I think the goal of mine, I want to remain professional and show my family and the players that I could still compete at a high level, is a motivating factor for me. And treat it as almost like a hobby that you can make some money doing. So I'm got to sign up in the next couple of days here for the Colorado Open, but plan on playing that and planning on competing at a high level in it. I'm not ready for any ceremonial golf. I still want to go out and make some birdies, and it in a little different stature, but that fire is starting to come back a little bit. Just to compete with no real goal in mind, other than just play as hard as I can, because that's what I enjoy doing.
That's awesome. Well, I know that I'm a huge Derek Tolan fan. I always have been. I remember taking you to the Cup, giving you a ride back from the Colorado Cup matches because you were too young to drive, and you always impressed me at your golf maturity, your golf IQ, and your confidence in yourself. I remember asking you in the car on the way back. I said, were you nervous? And I'll never forget what you said. You said, no, I wanted to be in the last match, playing the best player with everything on the line. And that really stuck with me. And it's still there. It's still in you, right?
It's in there somewhere. Yeah. Gotta dig through some Doritos, but it's still in there.
Well, and I also know that not that long ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you shot what, 28 or 27 on the back, and so it's still there. Let me tell you. Yeah. So, well, you have a lot of friends and a lot of fans in this game, and again, I feel like I take pride in your accomplishments, because you grew up in the CGA, you grew up playing our tournaments. I remember when you were in the 10 and unders, and it's just really neat to see how much you've matured and what you've given back as a coach and as a CU guy. And I just think it's really neat, because at the end of the day, it's about what you give back to the game, and you've certainly done that.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's really nice having an answer for questions that are being asked, with the guys on the team, and not only just in golf, but a lot of life in general. So it's a huge joy for me to be able to, make them a little bit smarter, a little bit tougher, and passing on some knowledge that some lessons I learned the hard way. So that's been really fun for me.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Well, I think that's a wrap. We'll do this again sometime. Aaron,
Absolutely.
yeah. Best of luck.